Well, we had toured, I don't know, I mean, different phases. I mean, this problem's been since 1991, so initially, when it first hit me and I was diagnosed with this, it was probably a 3-year period before, it was between the third and fourth Cinderella album. And the first 3 were kind of back to back, and then there was this gap. And it was because of the voice thing, because I couldn't sing. I'm trying to write songs and I don't know what register of voice I'm writing for, and it was just a very confusing time. And I eventually started working with coaches after I'd come to resign myself to the fact that that's what I was going to have to do. Mm-hmm. And kind of got to the point where, the vocals on the 4th record were pieced together. It's like, just get in there a word at a time, a line at a time, and just get it done. And they sound great, and a lot of times that's how you record vocals. I had never done an album that way, but it's the only way I could do that album. And so it's kind of like over the last 20 years or so, little steps at a time, I've been able to get enough strength or whatever to do what I had to do. So I made that record, and then we went out and did a very short tour for that record, which I did okay, but it's been like this. And probably the worst was we toured in 2006, and there was a long break before that, almost 4 years before we toured or did anything again, because my voice went. I was diagnosed with a second paresis. We were in rehearsals for the tour, and nothing would come out. And I decided to go on the tour anyway and kind of push through it. And just before I flew to a specialist in LA, and he told me that he thought that I had suffered a second paresis on the right side. And he said that he wasn't going to put me through. They do a neurological test called an EMG, which is not a real comfortable test.
Hard to watch too.
They measure exactly how much conductivity's been lost with that. And they got to stick needles into your throat, and you feel electrical charges. It's kind of not fun. And he said, you know what, let's not even put you through that. Because if it is, we know what the recipe is. You got to train. So I went out and just squeaked through that tour. I mean, I was changing melodies and talking through songs, but it was our 20-year anniversary, and I didn't want to burn the tour down. We had already rehearsed. So I went through. It was probably one of the hardest things for me to walk up on that stage every night knowing it was bad. My voice sounded bad, and I'm reading reviews about how bad it sounded. And the fans are always so supportive. But you read these reviews, and when you know it's true, it hurts, because I know how I used to sing, and I sounded like the records, and I sang like a bird the first 3 or 4 tours, and then I'm on this tour, and I'm reading reviews, and as much as I would like to get mad at the writer, I'd be like, well, he's right. I'm really bad this year, and I knew going into it I was going to be, but I didn't want to cancel the tour. And when that tour ended, that's the one that ended with, like, the blood vessels were just, all of them, about to burst, and that's when I had to go to Harvard, and they had to zap a bunch of stuff out. And that started probably really the darkest time, because I had no voice at all after that 2006 tour. And I knew that the only thing I could do was train it, and I started working with different coaches, and eventually that's when I found Ron Anderson in 2009. And that's when things started getting better. But a lot of work, daily work to be able to have it.